Hi, I have to apologize for the glare of my glasses. I do have my light on my camera. It's a little bit fuzzy if I turn it off because our apartment's so dark. Our light fixture actually went completely out, so we have no lights right above me. But I want to talk to you about something. A lot of people, if they get this $1,400 stimulus check, may decide to buy solar. Alright, there are some things you need to understand about solar before you spend the money. One, it is cheaper to build your own set. You can buy 400 watt solar panels, that's 100 watts, 4 panels, for less than $400 off eBay and other places. Now these do not come with a charger controller. We're going to talk about that really quick about the solar panels first. Getting the right amount of solar panels for what you consider you need is a must, but you always try to make sure you have at least a little bit extra if you live in a warmer climate. I'm going to talk about that. Solar panels work best in a colder climate. That's actually a fact. So if you live in a cool climate, you're going to have to understand something. If you get 800 watts of solar panels and they're telling you to go with like a 40-60 amp charger controller, do not do it. Now, solar panels, like I said, when they're cool, they can produce up to 25% more power. So if you're living in a cool climate where your solar panels will stay cool, they can produce more power and more amps. Take a solar setup, like I plan on buying 8 100 watt solar panels if we ever get that money. I will also buy a 80 amp charger controller. Now you're probably going, well, wait a minute, a 60 to 70 amp should work. That actually depends on the panels and your climate. Once again, your climate has a lot to do with how much power these are producing. So I live in Montana. It is cool a lot of the year. Not cold, except for in winter, it's cold, but it's cool a lot of the year, which means it can produce a little bit more power than what these panels are rated for. These panels, when they test them with like 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's where they're getting their numbers. But the cooler the panel, the more power, the more watts, and the more amps it's going to create. So your average solar panel creates, we're going to use a 100 watt solar panel, that's 100 watts and 5.6 amps, 5.6, 5.7. That's your average solar panel for a 100 watt. Now if I get 8 of these, that's 800 watts, and that's 50 something amps, give or take, 40 something, 50 something amps. But in a colder climate, add that 25% in. To be on the safe side, you want to make sure your panels do not produce too much power for your charger controller. That can run your system and it can run your batteries. So if I get 8 100 watt panels in a cool climate, and the colder it gets, the more power it can produce, that can actually produce an extra 200 watts of power, and each panel can produce about 9 to 9.2 amps in a cool climate. So knowing this, that each panel can produce up to 9 amps or just over, and there's 8 panels, that would bring me to right there at an 80 amp solar charger controller. Now I'm making this because a lot of people may run out and buy solar. If you do, there's a whole lot more to hooking up solar than just buying a couple panels, some batteries, and a power inverter. You have to replace or buy cables, you have to buy batteries a certain type. You do not have to buy lithium batteries. If you're going to run this on a 24 volt system, then your panels can be, your charger controller actually uses less and can handle more on a 24 volt system. Now on most 12 volt solar charger controllers, they will operate anywhere from 700 watts to 900 watts in solar. So if you're looking at a solar charger controller, figure out how many panels you have or how many you're going to get, and if you add an extra one or want to expand on this, then you need to add that number in too. Now I already have 4 100 watt solar panels, and I do have that on a 30 amp charger controller. Now it's the 30 amp charger controller I have does a good job, but it came with 3 100 watt solar panels. If I was going to replace that, I would go higher. I would actually go to a 40 amp, but so far it has seemed to work fairly well. So I'm not gonna, mess with that too much. Charger controllers are very expensive. Do not buy a $20 charger controller off eBay that says 60, 40, 60, 80, 100 amps, because it will not handle that. Those things are complete junk, and if you get one, you're liable to burn something up. You're liable to burn up the charger controller. Those are fine for 1, maybe 2 solar panels, but not if you're going to have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 panels. Now once you get your solar panels, say you want to buy 8, I can get 8 solar panels 100 watt off eBay for under $700. That's 800 watts of solar. The charger controller, on the other hand, the cheapest one I found that will handle anywhere from 700, and they're saying it'll handle, it's a 80 amp charger controller, but they say it will only handle 700 watts of solar. You're going, okay, then why don't I just buy 700 watts of solar? Well, I do want to have an extra solar panel. I do already have a 15 amp charger controller that I'm not using. So in a bad situation, I can actually let somebody else have that panel and that charger controller to help them in a situation. So I am going to buy 8. But the charger controller I'm looking at is $80. And that's one of the cheap ones. But it is an 80 amp charger controller. It has USB charging on it, petty stuff. Me personally, if it was just a basic solar charger controller, I'd be happy with it, without all the other junk. But you get what you can get. Now the charger controller alone is $80. The 8 solar panels I'm going to buy, if we get this money, which it looks like we might, is going to run around just under, it's like under 700. It's $631, I believe, for 400 watts, and we're going to double that up. So you also have to have your wire for connecting the solar panels. You have to have wire for connecting batteries. Now my personal rule of thumb on batteries, I do have lead acid batteries. I have dual cycle batteries. My rule of thumb, for me personally, you can add more batteries if you like, is 1 battery for every 200 watts. So basically 2 solar panels for 1 battery at a 100 watt solar panel. So that's 200 watts per battery. That helps those batteries charge quicker and stay topped off. If you have one battery per solar panel, remember, on an average day, these solar panels are charging just over 5 amps. So basically, it's about how much power a regular car battery charger puts out on high. You know, one that you get to plug into the wall and put on the battery terminals of your battery on your car. Usually they're two 12 volt 2 amps or 12 volt 6 amps or 6 volt 2 amps, something like that. So basically, however long it takes you to charge your battery off a regular car battery charger, it would take a little bit longer to charge it off one solar panel. That can take all day. Depends on how much power you use out of that battery. Now I'm going to make this, I am making this video because a lot of people have questions about charger controllers. What size do I need? Well, the simplest answer is, it depends. 100 watts, 200 watts can be 15 amp or even 20 amp. If you want to make sure, what you would do on a 200 watt system is you would get the 20 amp. Considering these panels, when they get cold, can produce a lot more power than what they're actually rated for. And like I said, if I get 8 100 watt panels, I will only use 7 of them because the charger controller I'm looking at is rated for 720 watts. And that's on an 80 amp charger controller. You don't have to spend a bunch of money on solar, but you are going to spend some. Now, you're going, well, why don't I hook all my solar panels together? That would, if I got 8 panels and I hooked up the 4 I have now, that would be 1200 watts of solar. That would take a charger controller that runs around $400 to $700. It would have to be a 100 amp, way higher than, it'd be like a 150 amp charger controller. And that'd be cutting it close, considering where I live in Montana, it gets cold. Those panels can produce more power, and I have to add in that extra 25% that those panels can produce. So that solar charger controller alone could set me back more than the 8 solar panels by themselves. One question people ask is, can you hook up 2 different charger controllers to one battery pack? 2 different solar setups? Yes, you can. It shouldn't cause any conflict. So if I actually had to, I could take the charger controller I have now, the small charger controller I have, and then whatever other charger controller I had, you know, we plan on getting, if we get our $1,400. We're not relying on it, but if we get it, that's what we're spending our money on. So I can actually hook all 3 of those up. I prefer not to. If I hooked 2 of them up, it would be the 30 amp and the 80 amp into the same battery pack. But I would make sure all my batteries were connected. Now, the batteries alone for 800 watts of solar, you need at least 4 batteries. At least. The more batteries you have, the more power you can store, the more you can use, but the longer it takes to charge. So, if I had 4 batteries on 800 watts, that would charge at a pretty decent speed. It would charge around 11 to 12 amps, which is still going to take a while, but it's twice as fast as the battery charger I have for my car, or well, for my van. So if you're confused about what you need, look on the back of your panel. There's information there, everything from the watts, the volts, the amps. Now take how many panels you have. If it's 100 watt and you have 4 panels, guess what? You take that, that's 400 watts, and then you add 25%. 25% of 400 is 100. So that's an extra 100 watts that you have to worry about if you live in a cold climate. Amps is the same way. In a cold climate, the amps can jump higher. They can jump over 9 amps. Barely, but they can jump over 9 amps per panel. So, figure how many panels you have. Figure, alright, is this going to be in a cold climate or a hot climate? If it's in a hot climate, solar panels are not as efficient. They just don't work as well as in a cold climate. So, figure the climate you're going to use this in, first of all. Second of all, figure out how many panels you're going to get, add everything together, and then give yourself an extra 25% to be on the safe side for your charger controller. You know, I don't know what people are going to spend their money on, if they even get it. Joe Biden's a lying piece of crap. We know that. We saw that as soon as he took office. And he's still a lying piece of crap. I mean, look at the stuff that's happening all over this country. But if you're lucky enough to get that, and with the way they're pushing things, trying to close down fossil fuels and oil and everything else, he's going to force you eventually to either buy a high price from an electric company or have your own solar and wind power. If you have the money and you just want to make sure you have a little bit of power for an emergency, get 2 or 3 solar panels and 2 batteries. They don't have to be lithium batteries, because guess what? They don't work when it's extremely hot either, and they don't work when it's extremely cold. So, you know, cheap lead acid batteries that are dual cycle will work for most situations and most people. In fact, that's what I'm going to be using. That's what I'm using now on my 400 watt array, is 2 dual cycle marine batteries. And it works just fine for what I need it for. But we do have a camper trailer now that I have to fix up. And we want that to be completely self-sufficient. Now, we're not going to be hooked up to the grid when we move on the other side of Montana. Now, I have a wash machine, we have an air conditioner, microwaves, a little mini fridge, and a deep freeze, plus our computers, laptops, whatever. I already purchased timers for my mini fridge and my deep freeze. The wash machine I will not use all the time. So the deep freeze and the mini fridge and the air conditioner are going to go in the camper. Of course, we will have our laptops, and she may play games on her desktop once in a while. But the wash machine and the dryer, I think I will probably put in my van and just use it that way. That way I can have 2 separate solar setups. If something happens to one, we still have the other one. We also have a 110 and a 12 volt water pump, which I've shown in my videos. So if I split the solar and the camper trailer only runs off 15 amps, and we keep that under 15 amps, then we'd have plenty of power. But if I need to do something else, I don't want to pull that from our main power that we use to be comfortable and, you know, have a fridge and deep freeze. So the 400 watts I have now will be used, of course, for other things. The water pump, the wash machine. As far as our dryer goes, I would not run our dryer off of a solar setup. That would just be dumb. I mean, it's possible if you want to spend $17,000 to $20,000. We're not going to do that. Understand, if you're building your own system, you need the panels, the batteries, the charger controller, the wires and connectors to connect your solar panels. You need a power inverter, fuses. You will have to amp up, literally amp up the size of the wire on your batteries. I do have I have a 2-gauge welder's wire on a 12-volt system. Now you're going, if a 24 or 48 system is more efficient and you don't have to have such a big charger controller or such a high charger controller, why would I be using a 12-volt system? It's very simple. My power inverters are 12-volt. I have a 12-volt coffee pot. My laptop can plug into 12-volt. So everything we need can work off 12-volt. My water pump, the submersible pump I have is 12-volt. And there are a lot more things you can buy that work off 12-volt than any of those other systems. 24 or 48 volt. If you're going to get any solar panels, you can buy the complete set. You're going to pay more money for that set, but it comes with a lot of stuff that basically you just hook up, set up somewhere, hook it up to some batteries, and hook it up to an inverter. The ones that come with the power inverters and batteries are really super expensive, and you're not going to get much for $1,400. And most people won't have $1,400 to spend on a solar setup. Most people are going to be lucky if they have $500 to spend on a solar setup. So, do a little research. But just remember, when you're looking at a solar charger controller, in a colder climate, those solar panels can produce up to 25% more power. So basically, the 800 watts, if I hooked all 100 panels up, all 800 of them, you know, all 800 watts, all 8 panels, when it's cold and the sun's out, those panels can produce up to 25% more power. That would be 1,000 watts. So that charger controller has to be able to handle that. Alright, I know I wasn't going to make any more videos for YouTube. I haven't really been doing much for Daily Motion either, but unfortunately I've got new subscribers on YouTube. And apparently this is a topic some people want to know about, solar charger controllers. Depending on the system you have, 12, 24, 48, whatever, will depend on the charger controller. If you have a 12-volt system, a 12-volt system cannot carry as many solar panels as a 24-volt system. If you look at a charger controller, Usually it will tell you the numbers of how many watts it can carry on 12 and 24 volt. Usually the 12 volt, like I said, some of these charger controllers say 700 to 900 watts, but on 24 volt it's like double that it can handle on a 24 volt system. So make sure if you're using a 12 volt system, you get a charger controller that can handle however many panels you're going to have connected. And if you live in a cold climate, make sure you add extra percentage in, because these panels work better in the cold. Alright, I'm fixing to go. I just want to make this video. This is basically on solar charger controllers. And what do you look for when sizing your solar setup? You do not have to have 2 panels for every battery. But considering 2 panels, say it's warm outside, 2 panels only produces 11 and almost 12 amps. Think of how long it would take to charge that battery once you discharge it down. You know, if you only have 1 panel, that's 5.6, 5.7 amps only that panel's producing. So basically, if you want to know, take your car battery, draw it down, and then hook up a regular battery charger to it that charges at 6 amps. And give that a little bit extra time, and that will tell you basically how long it's going to take to charge your battery up, especially if you're using lead acid. Now, I was going to try to make this a quick video. If you do a simple eBay search just for 100 watt solar panel, not the kit, just the panel, you can find them reasonably cheap. But then you have to find the charger controller. Now, for a single panel, double panel, then those cheap 30 watt or below, well, I'd say 30 watt or above. Don't get anything under 30, not 30 watt, but 30 amps. Sorry about that. If you're buying a cheap charger controller off eBay and they're $20, do not get anything under a 30 amp. Because basically they have like 2 extra MOSFETs in that compared to like 20 amp or something like that. So there's not a big difference. But you want that extra protection. But if you're going with a larger system, larger than, I'd even say 200 watts, I would avoid those charger controllers at all cost. If you're getting 300 watts, that charger controller is probably going to cost you 50 bucks. So avoid the really cheap junk if you're building your own system, unless you only have like 1 battery and 1 panel, or 1 battery or 2 batteries and 2 panels, or 1 battery and 2 panels, and then get nothing less than the 30 amp charger controller. Alright, I'm fixing to go, but just remember, when looking at solar charger controllers, take into account your location, take into account your weather, and always, if you want to be on the safe side, take the number of panels you're getting, the watts, and the amps, and always add 24-25% of the watts, and then figure 9 amps per panel to be on the safe side when it's cold. Alright, I'm fixing to go. I hope this helps someone out. And like I said, I don't know if we're going to get that 1,400 bucks or not, since Joe Biden's a lying piece of crap. And most of the money's going overseas into other BS programs that the Democrats want. I mean, he's a lying piece of shit when he said $2,000 and you idiots voted for him. Oh, well, we already got 600. Yeah, you piece of crap, Biden. That was under Trump. Has nothing to do with your lying ass. So, if you're lucky enough to get your money, and you're lucky enough to be able to spend that money on something other than rent, or credit card debt, or bills, or food, and you want to get solar, you have different options. You can build it yourself or buy it. A complete kit. Your basic starter kit comes with the panels, charger controller, wires, and brackets for the solar panels themselves, and that's it. You have to provide the battery and the power inverter. So even a small kit's going to cost you with everything extra. Me, I have 5 DC to AC power inverters. So, you know, I'm doing pretty well on that. And don't buy the cheapest power inverter you can find. We got my girlfriend a 1500 watt pure sine wave inverter off of eBay for like $170, $160, $170, something like that. They're not cheap. But if you're going to be running computers, TVs, you need a pure sine wave inverter. I know I keep staring at the light. It's in my face. My glasses are reflecting. But I wanted to talk about charger controllers. If you have a question about your charger controllers, then take your watts, add them together, take your amps, add those together. Now on the watts, like I said, if you're in a cool climate, add an extra 25% to what you have or what you're going to get. 800 watts, that'd be 1,000 watts. Each panel produces 5.6, I believe, 5.6 amps. Unless it is cool, it can produce more amps. So figure 9 amps to be on the safe side. Because some of these will jump up to 9.2 amps. And if you have a bunch of these hooked together, you have to make sure that charger controller can handle those extra amps and those extra watts. So to be on the safe side, figure 9 amps per panel, however many panels you have, and then that will determine the size of your charger controller. So 9 amps times 8 panels, it's what? 72? If my math was right. Could be wrong. No. Because 8 times 10 would be 80. No, that'd be 71. 71 amps. So if you've only bought a 70 amp solar charger controller, in a certain situation, your panels can produce more amps than that. That's one of the reasons I'm going with an 80 amp. To be on the safe side, you can always go bigger on your charger controller, but you can't go smaller. It is dangerous. It can fry your charger controller, it can fry your solar and your batteries. Going bigger is not going to hurt. So for every 100 watt panel, depending on where you live and the weather, you can figure 9 amps per panel. So if you have 2 panels, that's 18 amps. Now that's just under 20 amps. So you could use a 20 amp charger controller. But if you're buying cheap junk charger controllers from eBay, get nothing less than the 30 amps. Somebody on YouTube, I believe, tore one of these down. And they bought, I believe it was a 10 amp and a 30 amp or something like that. And basically the only thing that's different is like 2 extra MOSFETs or something like that to help regulate power. And they're basically the same price. So if you're going cheap, go with 30 amp or higher, even on a 200 watt system. If you're getting these cheap little junk solar charger controllers off eBay or Amazon, for a decent solar charger controller, you're going to pay $75, $80, $100, $200, $300, $600. I mean, the cheapest ones on eBay and Amazon, they could handle even 700 watts, is around $75, $80, something like that. Alright, I'm fixing to go. I know this is long, but size your system correctly. Think about how long it will take to charge your batteries, how long you need those batteries for, how many panels you're going to need, and take it from there. Alright, I'm fixing to go, and I hope that everyone has a good day. I hope you do get your money, and I hope you really don't need that money, but if you do, I hope you get it. I do know my girlfriend turned in her taxes already, and she already got her federal tax return back. She got like $400 less on her federal taxes than she did last year. And she only made $31,000 this year with COVID pay. So Biden is already hitting the working class. He's already taking money from people. I just hope that he doesn't take all yours. Alright, that's it. I'm fixing to go. I hope this helps you if you need to get a solar charger controller. Consider the extra power these panels can produce when it is a cold climate or cold weather. Alright, that's it. I'm fixing to go. Bye.